Introducing Phyllis Bennis, is a fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. Good to see you, Phyllis. Many thanks for joining us. So, an almost gleeful President Donald Trump, looking pretty relaxed, patting himself on the back. It made it sound like this deal was done and dusted, although he did admit that he needed to get some of the final words down. What we've heard from Hamas is an agreement to move forward with further negotiations, a promise to release the captives, but much more work still needs to be done. What do you make of this, Phyllis? Is this the start of a new grand process?
I don't think we know yet. I think this could be the start of the beginning of the end, if you will, of Israel's genocide that has now gone on for almost 2 years against Palestine. But I don't think we can say yet that is really going to happen. There's a lot of confusion about the differences between parts of the written proposal that Trump has put forward, the 20-point proposal, which itself was a combination of at least 3 that we know of, and maybe other proposals coming from Tony Blair, from the United States. You know, these are combined things that were clearly quite hastily put together. Hamas has agreed to a couple of key parts of it, starting with the release of hostages. But even that, the way it's written in the 20-point proposal is very different than how it's being talked about. It's being talked about by many of the interlocutors, by the media, as an exchange between Palestinian prisoners that would be released and the release of the hostages. What the agreement actually says, it's in 2 separate sections. The first section, this is point 4, says that within 72 hours of Israel publicly accepting the agreement, all hostages, alive and deceased, will be returned, period. That's it. Hamas is obligated to return the hostages. Then the next section, in section 5, it says, once all the hostages are released, then Israel will release 250 life-sentence prisoners, plus 1,700 other Gazans who were detained after October 7th, including all the women and children who have been detained since that time. But it was clear that that was a sequence. It wasn't something that was supposed to happen together. They're talking now about an exchange of prisoners and hostages, which is an entirely different process that requires perhaps the participation of the Red Cross. It's a much more complicated situation where you have prisoners on both sides being exchanged carefully. We don't know which of those versions is actually the case. If they go with what it says in the proposal from Trump, it means that Hamas will be obligated to turn over all of the hostages, alive and deceased, according to the language there, before anything is returned to the Palestinian side, before Israel is obligated to do anything. So what would prevent Israel from simply walking away from it once the hostages are back in their custody? We don't know that. We don't know the answer. We don't know what Trump's position will be or would be at that moment if Israel walked away. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. Israel has a history of walking away from ceasefire agreements that they had reached. They did it numerous times in Lebanon in past years. Just a few months ago, they did it again around Gaza, where they had agreed to a ceasefire, walked away before stage 2 had even begun, let alone stage 3, and simply said, we're not liking this anymore. We're going to go back to war, which is, of course, the official position of Netanyahu and his far-right supporters. So it's a very fraught moment. On the other hand, the level of destruction of Gaza, the starvation, the deliberate famine imposed by Israel and the starvation it has led to, that has led to so many people being killed, and the fact that the bombing is still continuing. Today, over 52 people were already killed in Gaza, 42 of them in Gaza City alone. So the desperation of people on the ground who have a huge impact on Hamas decision-making, not least because it's their families that are starving, their families that are being killed. They're not separate from this. So until we know how this is going to play out, I think it's a very dangerous moment, but we have to see it in the context of the desperation of people on the ground.
It is hellishly complicated. Look, I've got the 20 points in front of me here, and the more I look at them, the more you realise that so many of them are contingent upon earlier points being fulfilled.
Right.
And given that you're suggesting that some of these points may now happen simultaneously rather than consecutively, it does add, as you say, rightly, greater challenges. I wonder to what extent Hamas may feel that it is now obligated to disarm and, as such, seek assurances from Israel that they are prepared to withdraw. I mean, one seems to be dependent upon the other. And at the same time, what is there to say that Israel simply ignores this cease and desist order from Donald Trump to stop the bombing immediately? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any muscle to flex by way of the White House here.
Well, there is plenty muscle that can be flexed. The question is whether it will be flexed. The big piece of muscle that the White House has, that President Biden had, that President Trump has had, that every president in recent years has had, is the muscle that comes from providing the weapons and the money that enable this genocide. The moment that President Trump says and announces to Congress that I am going to stop allowing any weapons to be sent, period, full stop, that will be what changes the dynamics on the ground. If they were serious, they would move towards that immediately. This would not be simply President Trump saying, well, it's too dangerous for the hostages. He didn't express any concern about it being too dangerous for the Palestinians that have been living and dying under these bombs for 2 years. But he did say it was too dangerous to bring out the hostages under these bombs, which is certainly true. If he were serious about that, he would say, and we're not sending another bomb until the hostages are freed, the Palestinian prisoners have been released as agreed to, the process of allowing in unlimited amounts of food, medicine, water, electricity, all the things that have been denied for these many months. Until that happens, no weapons and no money goes to Israel, period. That would have an enormous impact. So there are potential ways of making this happen. Do I think that President Trump is about to do that? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's even on his list of possible means of putting pressure on Israel. I don't think he sees his role being to put pressure on Israel. His role is to support Israel. It has been all along. So how this plays out, I think we just don't know yet. There is so much that is unclear. It's not only about the exchange of prisoners and hostages, it's also about the future of Gaza. And Hamas has been very clear on that they are not signing off on that those issues must be determined not by Hamas alone, but by the Palestinian people as a whole, not only those in Gaza, but including those in the West Bank, in occupied East Jerusalem, and potentially among the exiles and refugees around the world in the diaspora. So this is a very complicated set of realities that we're dealing with here. But what is on the immediate agenda includes the exchange of hostages and prisoners, which they are talking about. Hamas has said it is not prepared to disarm until Israel has left Gaza. And the points now, the 20-point proposal, does not call, even in the future, for Israel to completely get out of Gaza. It says that it will pull back to a line inside Gaza that will be agreed to, but it will be inside Gaza. Yeah. That means a continued occupation.
Understood. Phyllis, let me ask you a question about Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. Apparently he was surprised by Donald Trump's statement, that coming from Israeli media. Do you really think that Benjamin Netanyahu has been caught off guard here? Was the assumption from him, at least, that he thought Hamas would simply reject this because it was too hellishly complicated and too against everything that Hamas had ever previously fought for?
Well, it wasn't against everything. I mean, Hamas had made clear for a long time that they were prepared to give up political power in Gaza in favor of another Palestinian institution, whether the PA or technocrats. They've been saying that for a long time. They had said they would give up all the hostages in return for the release of prisoners and a withdrawal of Israeli forces. So these things are not all new. But I think that what we are dealing with is a situation where Netanyahu, no more than anyone else, I think, can know what is in Trump's mind. Was he expecting this explicit kind of endorsement from Trump of the Hamas response? Maybe, maybe not. But I think the fact that the Israeli cabinet has not met officially since the team returned from Washington. When they arrived, it was already Yom Kippur, so they were not meeting then. Today, of course, was the Shabbat, so they were not meeting today. So they won't be meeting for another few hours officially. So what Netanyahu is prepared to say is all based on what he hopes will happen in terms of keeping his far, far right, really fascist right coalition together. And he doesn't know yet whether that's going to be possible or not.
Phyllis, always good to hear your thoughts. A pleasure to have you on Al Jazeera. Phyllis Bennis there.
Thank you.